But, you know, again, we were sort of in with science fiction, but meanwhile we'd already been writing for, you know, Doctor Who as well. So there you go.
Where does the whole sci-fi thing come from? How did you get into it?
I would say that it was Bob who was interested in it at first, because I didn't see Doctor Who until we actually started writing it. It just wasn't one of the things that I looked at, and I had the children that we had, you know, were either too young or too old to be watching it, but you know, we sort of buckled down and watched it, and kids truly did hide behind the sofa. I've seen them do it. And so at that point, and I found out I could terrify small children without actually being arrested for it. I took an interest in writing for Doctor Who, and we did get good at it. We pulled ideas out from all sorts of things that were actually slightly more scientific than the other guys. We did one based on the life cycle of a butterfly, which was started with a caterpillar, then a chrysalis, and finally the beautiful angel came out at the end. I was pleased with that one. What was that called, Bob?
The Mutants. That's good. That's right.
Thank you.
Yes. The only thing is I'm not good at memories. But yes, I was the one. I'd watched Doctor Who pretty well from the first show. I was, if you like, hooked, and then my children were just growing up around about that time, and they liked it too. And you know, I mean, I never dreamt that I'd ever write for it, but not that I didn't particularly want to. But I mean, but once the chance came up, I felt really good about it. You know, and I thought, wow, you know, this is a series that I've always enjoyed, and I can actually contribute to it. It'd be fantastic. And we went through a very long apprenticeship to do our first one, and I suppose it must have worked, the apprenticeship, so we went on for the next 9 or 10 years doing it as well.
But how did your involvement with Doctor Who come about?
Well, it began when amongst our pile of unpublished and unmade stuff that we'd accumulated over the first years of our writing together, we'd sent a script off to BBC London, and about a year and a half later we had a note from a producer saying, would you like to come to London to talk about this script, because they thought it was very good, you know, and that, you know, they'd like to talk to us anyway. So we went up there, and we met them, and they took us to the BBC bar, where they proceeded to get us absolutely pissed on gin and tonics, which we gladly took because we were nervous, obviously, and we talked about, you know, this program, which was actually an army series, an army story, which was about somebody in the tank regiment. In fact, it's the early life of Keith Floyd, believe it or not. They kept saying things like, well, we can't afford tanks. And I said, oh, no, I don't mind about that. No, you can armoured cars are fine. No trouble at all. And then they slipped in between these sort of questions and things. They said, do you know what we do? I said, no, about these tanks. No, don't worry about it. They said, we do Doctor Who. Yes, fine. Now, you don't use tanks, you use armoured cars. I mean, much cheaper. So, would you like to do a Doctor Who? Yes, sure. Now, about the tanks. And that's how it happened. And we went away thinking, we're going to be writing Doctor Who.
The producer and script editor of Doctor Who at the time, Terence Dix, Barry Lett, they say that they called you the Bristol Boys, and that you needed a multi-million-pound budget to actually realise the ideas in your scripts.
Well, we weren't going to stop, you know, just because they needed $1 million budget. The reality took a long time to sink in, as Bob said, about a year, where we kept writing Star Wars, hoping that they'd finally get the money together. In fact, you know, it was us. But even being then, in those days, being asked to write for Doctor Who was like being asked to play for Arsenal. So you did expect to actually go through a bit of training first. And we were highly flattered, you know. I think they called us the Bristol Boys because they thought we went really serious about it. You know, we'd got real jobs somewhere else.
The first story you did for Doctor Who was Claws of Axos. How did that develop from your original ideas?
It went from a 7-parter, that's right, a 7-parter, which then said, well, perhaps we ought to make a 6-parter. And then went from a 6-parter to maybe up to a 4-parter. We finally did a 4-parter, and all the big sort of production values were all going by the slicing by the way, you know, and finally we got down to what sort of quite a neat shape in the end. But we'd started off with a similar sort of story, but we had sort of lots of spaceships and things like that, and lots of very big special effects going on, and things like, and then there's this fairground where this Ferris wheel goes wrong or something that goes rolling across, you know, that kind of thing, the thing that they couldn't possibly stage. But maybe they could do it now with CGI. But you know, in those days it was you're going, it's multi-million, you know. But you know, we finally chipped it down to it's like starting a big sculpture and chipping it down to a little one, you know. And it was there, and you know, they seemed happy with it, and they asked us to do another one.
Like your inspiration for the mutants came from the life cycle of the butterfly, where did your inspiration for Claws of Axos come from?
That was the wasn't it, David? It was the brain and the workings of the brain.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That the axons were in fact neurons in one brain, so that the brain in fact held this huge brain. The people were parts of it, you know. And there was also the stuff about the financial side of it, wasn't there, as well, which is the satirical part of it.